Okay. Good good afternoon, good evening, actually. I am Karen Goodfellow. Welcome to tonight's question and answer for the Unmonument Call to Artists. We will be introducing ourselves. There are three of us here who are involved in running the program. There's myself, Karen, as I mentioned, and I use the She series, my colleague Amber, who is off camera right now, but you can see her both in her icon on Zoom and on the screen. Amber, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Amber Torres. I'm a public art project manager working with the city, and I'm really excited to talk about this project today.
And my colleague Paul is in transit right now, but we are joined by our colleague at Emerson Contemporary. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Michael Louie, and I'm an artist and also sometimes curator. And I'm going to be teaching the workshop that goes along with the program. And just basically, it's going to be the platform they're using is called Hoverlay, and it's pretty easy to use. And we'll be doing I think it's 5 sessions and program to learn how to use it and to make art for augmented reality. So it should be pretty fun.
Great. Um, ah. So we're going to go over the call to artists. But before we do that, here are some examples of our work. A lot of this is our long-term projects. Many of them are integrated into different city renovations and constructions, like those you can see here that are at the Engagement Center or were associated with different libraries. We have JP Library at top center and Roxbury Library at top right. And then the bowling building with Museum Newton's piece on the bottom there, and also something from the Transformative Public Art Call, Love Thyself by that piece in the bottom right by Victor Quinones. And this program is temporary art, so it's a little bit different than all of these. And we're going to get into that now, but I will say that this did grow out of the Transformative Public Art Call that the mural on the bottom right was also developed from. The call to artists will give you a lot more detail. I don't know if you've read it yet. I suggest you read through it very thoroughly. And we're going to walk through it together today. And hopefully the walking through part won't be too time consuming, and we'll mostly have time just to take your questions and have a conversation. This is the second one of these we've done today. It looks like we have a pretty small group now. We had a bigger group this afternoon, so we should have plenty of time to get all of your questions. And anything we don't know, we will address in the written questions and post publicly in case we have to go back and research. There are 3 different opportunities that we have open right now. One is temporary art, and that is sort of the biggest part of the call to artists. These are temporary monuments. They can be in all sorts of different forms and media, and we're hoping that you'll stretch the definitions and thinking around what a monument can be. Want to highlight that the deadline for that is April 23rd at 5 p.m. Please do submit early. Please don't wait till that afternoon to work on it and submit. Just in case there are technical errors, we cannot accept late proposals. So I highly suggest you just get it in, even if it's not perfect. And then we have the augmented reality workshop, and that Michael can speak to a little bit. We'll have more information later. And I'll hand over to you, Michael, but I will, for now, say the deadline for that is earlier. It's April 16th. It is a much easier application. I mean, they're all pretty straightforward, but it is one where you can submit information pretty readily, and you will be able to then propose works afterward for the rest of the program if you'd like. And we also have an application for community members, not just artists, but artists can apply to be part of the advisory team, and that also closes on April 16th, and both of those are at 5 p.m. If you are interested in that, please apply. But if you want to be an artist doing a project, you can't be on both, but do share with others and think about applying if you don't have a project. It would be great to have artists represented on that. This is our general timeline. We're in April right now. The calls are open. We're actively answering these questions. And then we're going to move into artist selection and grant agreements. And in May, we'll do a public meeting at the Art Commission, finalize projects, start moving forward with payments, and start installing projects. And looking at this time over the summer will also be when we'll be having the public talks and other engagements. And then by the fall, we'll be deinstalling, doing documentation, and you should also be thinking about maintenance in the meantime as you're doing projects. And a reminder that the grant will reopen, the opportunity will reopen next fall, winter, but for this opening, you can also propose for the second year. So you can propose now for this summer, or you can propose for next summer. But there will be a second opportunity to apply for next summer. This is the basics of the call to artists. You can see we're looking for proposals from artists or artist-led teams. That's pretty important that we are looking for visions from artists. We've had a lot of conversations in the last years on monuments. Many of them have been led by folks who aren't makers or aren't the ones doing the monument development. And we think it would be really great for all of us as a community to get together and connect, through these forums and experimentation for what monuments could be in all sorts of different ways, both in terms of trying new things and returning to old ways. And in this way, we're talking about unmonuments as well, things that would be very different than what we would normally think of as monuments. You can also see here that we do list out all the basic information so that you can sort of scan and get a quick idea about which of these projects is right for you. Since you folks made it to this meeting, I think you found your way through it already. The background on the project, we spent a lot of time really thinking about this program in the last couple years, coming from a lot of different work that we've been doing with artists across the city, both putting artworks up and removing some. You can see here 2 examples of really important projects that we've been working on at the city. This mural by Rixie, Rita's Spotlight, honoring Rita Hester, which was put up through the Transformative Public Art Program. And over on the right, you can see another example of an important piece that is in process, based on a drawing by Paul Goodnight. We have some sculptures created by Mario Chiodo, and those will be getting installed in Lower Roxbury sometime in the near future. Another part of this project that I think is important, that in addition to the artworks that will come through this open call, we are directly commissioning artists through 5 curatorial collaborators: Emerson Contemporary, the National Center for Afro-American Artists, the North American Indian Center of Boston, Now and There, and POW Art Center. So all of these works will be coming into the public over this summer and next summer. The intent there is to have a real diversity of curatorial points of view, and our collaborators are taking all sorts of different approaches. We've released those to the public through both a press release and through social media. If you're interested in learning more, we can share those with you, and we are also adding them to the map that we have linked in the call. The advisory team I already talked about, but you can find a link to it here. On this page on the right of the call, I think it's really important to note that we list different kinds of media. So temporary sculptural installations and interventions is what you might immediately think of when we're talking about temporary monuments, but we're also including murals and recreations or restorations of existing murals. And this could include some of the murals you might see across the city that were done decades ago that may be fading. We thought someone might be able to think of these as monuments and propose working with the original artist to bring them back to life. We also include new media, including augmented reality, which Michael will speak to a little bit later. And then social practice and community engaged cultural practices. We also kept on here the interior installation performances that are visible or audible to passersby for free. This was something that we had added to the transformative call during COVID, and we thought it was an interesting inclusion still, and that some projects could come up through it. But we don't have like set ideas of what that could be, but we didn't want to limit projects in any way if they can be experienced freely from public spaces. Possible sites would be those that are monument related. You might already think of the Emancipation Group site, the Boston Massacre site, places like the ComAv Mall, Public Garden, and Boston Common, where we have a lot of existing pieces, or Boston City Hall. But there are a lot of other places across the city that we would love if you would look at and consider very seriously. We have some visual images down the bottom here from Wen T. Sen, who is an artist who did temporary pieces in public. You can see that piece on the bottom left, which we, after he did the temporary installations, we ended up funding and are in the process of commissioning a long-term installation. So those will be made, these 5 figures are going to be at 4 sites. 2 of them go together, the grandmother and child. 4 sites around Chinatown, the Chinatown workers, statues, and those will be installed at ground level in bronze. But I think that process shows how we could be doing something temporary that is in itself a thing and is only meant to last for that time, or it could be an experiment meant to inform longer term projects that may come later. Here, I think the site criteria is pretty straightforward. I mean, you have to think about like, is this safe for people? That will be really important as we're reflecting on them. So do take that part seriously and think for yourself how it will be for real people to interact with whatever you propose. Excuse me. And then with funding structure, we have 4 levels of funding. The first tier is under $10,000. This is where we're going to be doing most of the granting. Please really consider whether your project requires more than that. We see a lot of people propose bigger budgets, but we'd appreciate if you could be thoughtful about what really is right and what you need for your project. The second tier is $10,000 to $30,000, and then $30,000 to $60,000, and then $60,000 to $100,000. We're expecting probably only 1 and possibly 2 at the 4th level, but we'll see how they come through. And I will say also for the first one, it is a more straightforward process to grant those funds and to develop the budget, as you will see as we go forward with the application explanations. And the second opportunity is the Augmented Reality Artist Workshop. And Michael, would you like to speak to that?
So my background comes from, I curated a show in Boston that's actually still going on. It's called Alpha 60, and it is an augmented reality show that's outside in the Emerald Necklace. And I did a version of this workshop a few years ago with Emerson and the Cyber Arts Gallery. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is allowing other artists, not just programmers, to be able to use this technology, because I kind of feel that until it kind of opens up, it's not going to be as interesting. So one of the great, because I spent years trying to figure out how to make AR. I'm not a programmer. I do use a lot of I do work in AR and VR, but I kind of come at it from an artist and not a programmer. And so that's how I'll be teaching the course. And the great thing about the Hoverlay app, it's a web-based app, and it does allow you to do 3D work, but it also allows you to do video, green screen video that you can layer, and images. And I've done work with painters who we've made their work more applicable to augmented reality, so that the work becomes part of the environment. And that's kind of the basis of the course. And we'll be going through how to use the app. There'll be some basic instruction in 3D, really minimal, because you could really like spend your whole life learning how to use 3D actually. But I think it'll be a really good basis. And I think there's a lot of potential to take that work and to do things with monuments, um, um, overlaying monuments. And what the other thing that the Hoverlay app does really well is it's location based. So you can comes with a map and you can really make a walking tour. So you could easily tie it to a monument and make work around the monument. So that's basically it. Like I said, that it's going to be how many classes did I think it was? About 22 hours, and we're going to have the CEO of Hoverlake come and he'll give a talk. We're going to have some guest artists, and I think there'll be about 8 to 10 students in the course, something like that. So that's basically the background of it.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just reiterate the deadline for that is the 16th at 5 p.m. There will be another course next year with projection mapping. And folks that participate in the workshop will have the opportunity to apply for to be part of the exhibit, but it is not guaranteed. So it depends on what you develop. This is just a list of the things that you need to submit your application for Opportunity 1. Hopefully it's pretty straightforward. If you all have questions, I'm happy to answer them. But we just list this out so you don't see it for the first time when you're actually filling out the application. But it's pretty standard, I think. I think the one thing I should say about it is we do say that to apply, you can be an artist, or you could be like a business, or you could be a nonprofit. And we are looking for artist-led projects, but some artists might be applying as an LLC. Some might be like working with a fiscal sponsor or a community partner. So that is the reason for the different structures. And again, if anyone has questions, happy to answer them. And then for Opportunity 2, for the workshop, it's a little bit more straightforward, the things you need to submit. Again, here we talk about the eligibility and the review criteria. So these are things that we'll be thinking about when we review your proposals. And my colleague Amber will speak a little bit about supplier IDs.
Thank you, Karen. For any artist that's working with the city of Boston, in order to be paid, you have to have a supplier ID number or a supplier ID account. You have to be registered as a supplier. And this is helpful to do in advance, just so that we can expedite your contracting if you are selected. And the way to do that is I can actually put a couple of links in the chat. And the two links that I'm putting in the chat, one is directly to our procurement webpage for the city of Boston. So you could just learn more about what we do. And the second link is directly to the supplier portal. And the screenshot at the bottom is from the supplier portal page. If you look on the left, on the bottom where that arrow is pointing, that's where you register as a vendor. And like I said, it's really helpful to do this in advance because it allows you to take on more projects with the city, not only with our department, but with any department. So heavily encourage that. And to Karen's point about registering or applying to this opportunity as an LLC or an artist, you'll want to make sure that your supplier ID is in alignment with that decision as well. I believe you can always have multiple accounts if you do, sometimes you do business as an artist, sometimes you do LLC, business as your LLC, but just make sure that you're being consistent with this project.
Yeah, and this will be most important if you're selected when it's time to get paid. Like right now, it's not super important, but when we get going, if you're selected, your payments will be delayed if there are inconsistencies, and we'll just have to navigate our own systems to try to fix that. So getting this all straightforward set at the beginning is helpful. These are the partners that we're working with. We're really excited to bring other folks in. And that is the end of our call to artists. For the community advisory team, these are the questions that we're asking for any of you who are interested. It's a simple Google form. And we would love if folks can apply. And again, it it is pretty straightforward, and we will have 4 subgroups for people to be part of. And, oh, I should say there's a $1,500 grant associated with that. Just to clarify, for opportunity 1, I talked about what the tiers are. We talked about it. This is what submittable looks like. You need a submittable account to apply to this. If you have questions about that, we're happy to talk about that too. And then for opportunity 2, the workshop is this. But I should say, Michael, I don't think we mentioned that there's a $750 grant that will go to participants just to cover the cost of participation for the 10 artists that are in the AR class. But that does not mean that they can't get more funding if they're selected to do a project. But there is $750 just straight up to participate in the workshops. Okay, and I think that is the end of just going over the basics here, and we can get into any questions you all might have.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure.
Amazing. Well, my name is Miguel Bracelli. I work with public art projects and participatory projects. I'm from Venezuela, currently living in New York. And I have like many questions, but probably we can go one by one about the partners. Like for applying for these monuments projects, do I need like a partner, or is it optional?
It's optional.
It's optional. Okay. And then it will be amazing to have a partner, because it's something that I normally do on my work, but I'm not based in Boston, so it will require more time. So if it's possible, like to find a partner after, or even like to partner with some of the institutions that are related with the project.
So I guess that's sort of up to you, right? In developing your proposal. Some the groups that are already in here, they have projects going already. But there's certainly lots of other organizations in the city. I don't know how well you know Boston, but you could start reaching out to them if you wanted to apply this year. Like I said, there's also the application next year if you don't feel ready. You could submit this year, and if you don't get it, you can apply again. And you could also respond to some social media posts and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm looking for folks on the ground, right? You can just start reaching out to people. Amber, I don't know if you have any ideas, and Miguel, I'm not sure exactly what kind of partner you're looking for, but I do think doing some quick outreach and seeing who might want to work with you could be a good idea.
Great. And about permits, if I would like to propose like something in one of the spaces that you are suggesting, like for example, City Hall, do I need to reach out to them in advance, or is something that I propose to you and you will be kind of like reviewing this with them?
It would be, you could apply to us, and if it seems feasible, we could help coordinate. There would still be work on your part to make that happen. But we could help make introductions if we thought it made sense.
Okay, and now that you say like feasible, which is a very important word, especially in this type of projects, normally with public art, it's like it's very hard like to create one specific narrowed perfect proposal, because it's subject to many variables like demands, rules, things. So I'm wondering how to encompass that. For example, a proposal, maybe it cannot be exactly as I am proposing it, but it could be similar. So normally with this project requires a lot of negotiation with the client or the partners, let's say. So I'm wondering how to work on that, or how like open could be the proposal, or how like perfectly narrowed they should be.
I think like going back to what I said earlier, like we're expecting things won't be perfect, but the more you can pull together, obviously the stronger and more competitive your proposal will be. But we do understand that until it's a little bit chicken egg, right? Like until you get the project, you can't finalize everything, and we do understand that. But I think showing that you at least have a plan for everything you need would be important.
And then if this is awarded, like will we be working with like with a team related with you, or is something totally independent? So if I don't know if like there's a curatorial team or like a support team. So it's something that we develop like shoulder by shoulder, shoulder and shoulder, or it's kind of something that you just delegate to us and we need to carry on.
I would say that it's somewhere in between those. So there is a need for autonomy on your part, like to have experience, to know how to lead your project and to really carry the vision. But we will be available for support. We're also in the process of hiring for folks to be assisting in various ways. But we won't be able to like implement things or like, you know, if you're selected, you will definitely have to be the driver of your project, if that makes
Yeah, for
sense.
sure. Let's see what else. And in terms of like like to participation of oh my god, people participation, like will you help us like with open calls and promotion, or it's something that we just need to like also do by your own? That's one of the reasons that we like to have like a partner, because I think a partner could be very strategic, like to gather community and enhance like people participation. But I wonder if something that you can also contribute in that area.
I think it depends on the nature of participation you're looking for. We can certainly help make connections. I think if you're selected, there will be a cohort of other folks doing this work who may also, you know, there may be some, you know, connections being able to be made between artists and different projects. And as I said, we're hiring folks to support through engagement, to support through communications and that sort of thing. But I think artists often provide each other with like great connections and community that could also be helpful.
Cool. Well, I think that's everything for now on my end.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, I think we might close out. Let me just give it a couple more minutes.
A question usually pops up in my mind at the last second. So if that happens to anyone else, I understand.
And you can always write in questions. And we had a pretty busy session this afternoon at noon that had a lot of questions, and so we'll be adding those questions to a Q&A that we'll post. That might take us a little bit to put them all together. But we will be sharing those publicly, and you can email in on monument@boston.gov with other questions that you might have, and we'll do our best to answer them. And I forget what the written question deadline is, but it's I don't know. I think we have
16.
until the 16th at noon, maybe. I think it's at 12 p.m. maybe, so that we can get things out before the 5 p.m. deadline for the workshop and community advisory team deadlines. All right.
I have like an honoring Amber comment and one last minute question. Do the partners need to be in Boston, or it could be in other places? For example, I'm doing right now a residency at the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown. Even if the project happens in Boston, could I have like a partner like outside Boston?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. I think looking for relevance to Boston will be important, though, I'll say. Like, why the site, whatever site you propose, like why there? How is it meaningful to the narrative, to the storytelling in Boston?
No, yes, of course. Good. Thank you.
Okay, well, good to meet you. Thanks for coming to our little chat. All right, I think we're gonna call it quits. Thanks, Al.